raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Donald John Trump, do solemnly swear.
I, Donald John Trump, do solemnly swear.
That I will faithfully execute.
That I will faithfully execute.
The office of President of the United States.
The office of President of the United States.
We have been given a gift by God today to usher in a new dynasty.
Now you get RFK Jr.
Don't you want a president who's going to make America healthy again?
You get Tulsi Gabbard.
Putting our country in a continual state of war.
You get Elon Musk and you get J.D. Vance.
A hell of a way to start the next 4 years.
The right-wing Avengers.
We have an army of digital soldiers.
Department of Defense under Donald Trump will achieve peace through strength.
Shut down the FBI Hoover building on day one.
The rescission of 78 Biden-era executive actions, executive orders, presidential memoranda, and others.
The golden age of America has most definitely begun.
Begin preparing the 30,000-person migrant facility at Guantanamo Bay.
They're getting the dirt bags off these trees.
There's one guy who can fix this shit, and it's Donald Trump.
What's storm, Mr. President?
You'll find out.
Shadows whispered in the wires, hidden hands behind the throne, built their kingdom out of silence, chained the world they thought they owned. Silent codes and stolen stories, truth was buried out of sight, but in the quiet hearts were beating, waiting for the spark of light. They thought we'd never see the mask behind the screen, but the cracks began to bleed, and we began to dream. From the dark to light we're rising, breaking chains, the veil dividing, truth awaken, flames igniting, the old guard falling, freedom climbing, dark to light, the dawn's arriving. We were lost but now unblinding, every whisper, every fighting, all converging, dark to light. We were ghosts inside their system, digital soldiers, quiet storms, turned the weapons of deception into signals to transform. Every lie became a beacon, every secret fed the flame. We're the chorus of the voiceless, calling out their hidden name. They thought we'd never know, but rivers find their flow, and seeds they tried to sow have grown and overflowed. From the dark to light we're rising, breaking chains, the veil dividing, truth awaken, flames igniting, the old guard falling, freedom climbing, dark to light, the dawn's arriving. We were lost but now unblinding, every whisper, every fighting, all converging, dark to light, dark to light. No more kings behind the curtain, no more pawns inside their game. We are fire, we are certain we'll erase their hidden name. Every tower built on lies will crumble, every shadow forced to see the sun. We are many, we won't stumble, we are rising, we've begun, we've begun. From the dark to light we're rising, breaking chains, the veil dividing, truth awaken, flames igniting, the old guard falling, freedom climbing, dark to light, the dawn's arriving. We were lost but now unblinding, every whisper, every fighting, all converging, dark to light, dark to light.
Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. My name is Josh. Welcome to the Red Pill Project's Daily Dose, live with you Monday through Friday. I hope everybody is doing well out there and having a fantastic evening so far. Tonight, doubleheader. We got the OG show right after this, Overwatching the Guardian, and that'll be on this channel. So stick around, make sure you're following and get those notifications. Excuse me. Kind of an interesting, eventful day, right? Watching various different things unfold on the landscape. The last few days, people have been asking me about Canada, and I'm like, I don't know what happened. Well, what I didn't realize is that Mark Carney went to Armenia and met with other European and global leaders, and within this, basically declares the liberal rules-based international order dead, and then starts to discuss the forming of a new rules-based international order that does not include the United States of America, but where Canada sits in the place. And this correlated obviously directly with King Charles's visit last week. So very, very interesting there. We're going to talk a little bit about what that could mean and why maybe certain things are happening all again. We got a pandemic potentially in the works happening right now with the hantavirus, which is interesting because, you know, doing the research on the hantavirus, you find out that it's really not that contagious. You have to have physical contact. So we'll talk a little bit about that. We had Tulsi Gabbard releases new memos from the Central Intelligence Agencies. We're going to look right into that. Some UFO news, but supposedly tomorrow's the day. But Tim Burchett said, don't get your hopes up. And this is what I've been saying. It's a three-phase situation that we're dealing with here. And so I don't think there's going to be much to look at with this first drop, or maybe there is. I don't know. Dark to Light show tonight. I don't know. So we didn't get our guest that we were trying to get for. I wanted to talk about near-death experiences, OBAs, out-of-body experiences, these types of things. But I don't know if I'm prepared for that show because I am an encyclopedia, but sometimes I have to go out there and get prepared. So let me talk with Alpha immediately after this show, and I will let you guys know. We're definitely having a show. I just don't know what it's going to be on. It might just be on current news, but we're going to try for the fringe topic. So hopefully we can get into that. A few different things as we get started here. I had a few different things. Now I can't remember them. Number one, so this show right tonight is sponsored by a great company that's a newer sponsor of ours. And I thought I'd just go ahead and play this video to begin with, because, I think that this is really, really important for everybody out there. And I use these things, and I hope that everybody else gives them a try as well. So I'm going to start off with this. It's about what is phototherapy, and hope you guys enjoyed this little short video. I'll be back in 1 second, and we'll get rocking and rolling.
Light, an ancient form of energy that goes back to the dawn of time. For us, it all begins with the sun, the source of light and life for our entire solar system. Even Einstein concluded that everything we're made of contains light. All life originates with the sun through photosynthesis. Plants and vegetation collect the light, and all living creatures emit light. Humans actually emit infrared light, which can be seen with night vision devices. We've known for centuries that light has many effects on the body. Lifewave's phototherapy patches use light that can promote a general state of health and healthy activity unique to each Lifewave patch. Here's how the technology works. First, a patch is applied to specific points on the body. Where the patch covers the skin, infrared energy emitted from the body is reflected back into the body and then taps into the body's own natural flow of energy. Lifewave phototherapy patches promote an environment that enables the body to optimize its restorative energy and enhances your ability to live well without the use of harmful drugs or chemicals. To find out more, contact your distributor. Lifewave. Live long. Live well.
All right. Thank you, guys. Let me get that out of the way. And that's life.redpills.tv, life.redpills.tv if you're interested in all of that. And Terry is in Hawaii today, so probably no session this Saturday, but we'll probably be doing it the following Saturday. So I'll get the information out on that and how to sign up for that. Let's jump right into it because I know everybody's like, dude, let's get this show on the road. There's a lot happening. There's a lot of interesting things happening, and I think that it's very, very important that we get into it. So let's just jump into it with Mr. John Solomon and listen to what he has to say right here. Wrong video. There we go. Okay. Why is it? Oh, there we go. All right. You ready?
One other thing we want to get to, it's a story we broke this morning. People have been talking about it all day. There are new documents that the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, has made available. They're unclassified. They show just how far the intelligence community went in 2020 to hide from the president, the Congress, and the American people certain foreign intrusions into our election. Now, we're not talking about things that may have changed the outcome of the election, but we are talking about sinister things like hacking into voter registration databases, running social media campaigns. The main actors in this one were China, for the most part, a little bit of concern about Venezuela. But what these documents showed this morning is that the CIA, on multiple occasions, tried to doctor President Trump's intelligence briefings to keep this information out. They did not want the information in the hands of the president or Congress. They wanted to keep it quiet. Now, we don't know why. Some of the documents do show some animosity in the intelligence community towards President Trump and his China policies. But we do know now that these things happen. In one instance, a CIA officer was asked to alter a document so that it wouldn't mention China. In another instance, a person was told he could not present information to the president. In a third instance, a CIA officer reported that Congress was falsely informed that there was no evidence of election concerns about Venezuela, when in fact there was an actionable piece of intelligence. Now, the sum total of this is that Tulsi Gabbard recently referred this to the Intelligence Committee Inspector General. It's being investigated. We'll see where the chips land on that. But
okay, now we already knew this, and this is what John Ratcliffe's summary in 2017 kind of came out and said. But this is more about the intentional hiding of this pre-election in 2020 from President Donald Trump. Now, why would they do that? The reason they do that is because there is a deeper connectivity to why they were hacking the databases. Why were they hacking the databases to get the data of the user information? What they most wanted was the various different analytical profiles of who's registered to vote, and how many, and do they actually vote in elections? Why? Because that gives you a rough estimate of the numbers of mail-in ballot fraud that you can do in various different states and regions. So if you think about it, if you have 1 million people on your voter registration roll, and they hack in and they see this, and they see that in the back end data that these people only vote, let's say, 20% of them actually vote in an election. Now you can beef up the mail-in ballots to that one region by 80%. See how that works? That is one of the intentionalities, I believe, that are behind all of this. And so with that, right now we have a lot of changes and reforms going on in the context of voter fraud and stopping voter fraud and ensuring that our elections are safe and secure. Coming up with the midterms, this becomes very, very critical and important. And I think that we're on the right track. One of them is the removal of gerrymandering districts. And a lot of these states are going out there and changing them, Florida being the most recent. And it's official. Tennessee has new maps that have passed in the state Senate and are on their way to be signed by law by Governor Bill Lee. So huge new maps. And so all of these new maps in redistricting Florida, we have Tennessee, Louisiana, Texas. It's going to be absolutely huge. And this comes down from a Supreme Court decision last week. All right, going to James Comey. This is where it gets really interesting. We talked about that we had predicate kind of indictments with James Comey. Now we're learning that indictment might not hold very long. And so the DOJ is armed with more indictments. Listen to this.
Do you anticipate there will be a superseding indictment in the Comey case? And would that charge likely be a violation of 18 U.S.C. 1001, the false statements statute?
If he made false statements to Secret Service, they could certainly weave that into a superseding indictment. Adding a 1001, not a bad fallback if there's issues with the free speech, the subjective intent on the lead counts. So it could be. I think 1001 has been so overused by prosecutors in recent years. It's kind of a substitute for actual evidence. I'd almost rather they say, we're going to go all in on these threats. And if we have lies, we'll use that. We can still make that admissible evidence, but not necessarily charge a 1001.
Okay, now, why is this interesting? When Comey's second indictment came, I said that Comey's going to walk. A lot of people didn't like that, but here's the reasoning why. I believe Comey is the bird that is singing. I believe Comey is the one. You heard it yesterday. Kash Patel talking with Hannity about it. That it's almost like someone was leaving breadcrumbs. They led us directly to the room. Inside the room, there's burn bags with tons of documents in it. Yeah, highly unlikely. Most likely someone handed them off a copy of all the documents, all of the compromise that they had from years of doing this, trying to cut a plea deal. He is the confidential informant, I believe, that is being utilized for FISA-gate. But you can't come out and say it because, well, it'll get him killed. So he has to play this part. I think at least that is what is going on with James Comey. I'm not sure, but I think that is the alignment, which I think he's probably going to walk off of this. Now, if he does walk from this, I'm not going to be one bit surprised. But I do believe that there's more indictments coming down the line, and that with everything ramping up, Tulsi Gabbard releasing more information pertaining to 2020 voter fraud, as well as the investigations into the origins of COVID-19, as well as the 2016-2017 intelligence community assessment investigations that are going into Fort Pierce, Florida on John Brennan. We can understand that there's a lot of big things coming down the road that interconnect and intertie with each other that is going to take down a large swath of people, including various NGO actors that were playing in this. And I mean, you got the Act Blue investigation, you get all the fraud investigation inside of each state. So it is pretty damn huge, this level of this RICO investigation that's going on right now. And let me ask you this, is if you knew information was going to start coming out, rolling out, declassified about you, about your level of control that you had, and you were utilizing it to try to take down a sitting president of the United States of America. If you are the deep state here in America, and you are the globalists who have been absolutely eradicated by Donald Trump over the course of the last year, like I just said, Mark Carney out there, they're formulating a new world order, not including the United States. I believe you have Australia, you have France, Germany. You're basically the old British empirical system that is incorporated in this. They're not included in the United States. I think that that's really important. This is going to negotiate around trade and militarily, most likely the replacement for NATO. With all of that understanding, what begins to happen when things are going to come out against them? Well, you always get some type of false flag or something that's going to happen. Well, what is that thing that's going to happen? Well, if you've been paying attention to the news, one thing that we know is that the Hanta virus is coming. The Hanta virus. It reminds us of an old X-Files clip. Listen to this one.
Know my work? I was right about Dallas, wasn't I?
How are you right?
Are you familiar with the hantavirus, Agent Mulder?
Yeah, it was a deadly virus spread by field mice in the southwestern United States several years ago.
According to the newspaper, FEMA was called out to manage an outbreak of the hantavirus. Are you familiar with what the Federal Emergency Management Agency's real power is? FEMA allows the White House to suspend constitutional government upon declaration of a national emergency. Think about that. What is an agency with such broad sweeping power doing managing a small viral outbreak in suburban Texas?
Well, and they were talking about the alien oil virus, but they mentioned it as the Hanta virus. Now, Tedros came out today, and he gave his dire, irony back to the United States of America. Listen to what he says here today.
So, because of the event that's happening now, and both Argentina and the U.S. are affected, I think they will reconsider their decisions, because they can see how important universality is for health security. Because viruses don't care about our politics, and they don't care about our borders, and they don't care about all the excuses that we may have. So I hope this could be a good lesson
I hope this could be a good lesson. There's people out there dying from the outbreak of this lesson. And Tedros is like, well, I hope that, this could be a good lesson to those countries to give us lots more money. Something is off with the hantavirus. It's now in multiple countries, and the ship hasn't even docked yet. 3 dead, 8 cases across Europe and South Africa. 147 passengers from the 23 countries are slowly dispersing across the globe. So what we have is the Andes strain of the hantavirus already on board of the MV Hondias that left Argentina, the only strain with documented human-to-human transition. I mean, how coincidental is that? It's the only hantavirus strain that has human-to-human transition, and it somehow leaves Argentina and makes it on this ship. I mean, crazy, right? Do you remember in 2022, there was a global exercise known as catastrophic contagion? Now, that dealt with a different type of virus, but I think the case in point is very, very simple. The same globalists are forming their new world order at the same time this virus is about to wreak havoc. And it's spreading in Argentina and the United States, 2 countries that are very, very pro-Trump. So catastrophic contagion was 2022 pandemic simulation run by Johns Hopkins University, WHO, and the Gates Foundation. The exercise simulated a fictional virus called SEERS-25, a highly contagious respiratory enterovirus with severe impacts on children and young adults. The goal was to stress test global responses to future pandemics, lockdowns, vaccine rollout, misinformation, supply chain collapse, and international coordination. It was a tabletop preparedness exercise similar to Event 201, Dark Winter, and Clad X. Interestingly enough, U.S. patent number 5614193 is tied to the hantavirus vaccine. Coincidence. It was issued in March 25th, 1997 by the United States Army. That's kind of interesting. Bill Gates from Gavi. This is the German nonprofit organization Gavi, which Bill Gates is directly associated and affiliated with. This was from 2021. The next pandemic, hantavirus. It's almost like they were trying to tell us all along. So this is where it gets really, really interesting. And by the way, I'll preface this before I say this, is that all of this information is very, very well documented. And what I am doing on a very skeptical nature is I am theoretically analyzing this stuff from a conspiratorial point of view. I want to state that this is not fact what I am saying, but this part here is very much fact. What is this thing right here? This is the cumulative analysis of post-authorization adverse event reports, VAERS reports, of various different symptoms that derive from the COVID vaccine. Very well documented. One of them is hantavirus pulmonary infection. What? That's kind of odd. That's very, very odd. And it gets my little monkey brain moving to the point where I want to investigate this a little bit more. Now, this is just a thought. Who was the only one of the 32 professors that were arrested by the DOJ for tax evasion in 2017 by Pompeo State Department that were involved in the China pay-to-play scheme to where they were brought over and they all had SAP program access? The most popular one became popular in 2020 because his research was actually derived at the Wuhan Institute of Technology and Virology, as well as his research was in nanotechnology. That was Dr. Charles Liebert from the Harvard lab. Now, Dr. Charles Liebert, he operated on what's known as nanomesh arrays, basically nanotechnology that would latch onto your cells and create an array among your cells that would take in the metabolism of the cell, take off the heat, and then distribute the heat to charge various other nanobots. Kind of interesting. But one of the other technologies that they also talk about is nanobots as carriers. So this is one of the ideas that big biopharma has had for a long time, is let's use nanotechnology or nanoparticles, nanomolecules as carriers for vaccines. And so you can make them time-released or even trigger-released vaccines. So I said, what if, and this is a big what if, like I'm saying, I'm being very skeptical here. What if COVID was stage 1? The vaccine was the carrier of a nanoparticle that held a dormant virus. When ready, that nanotech would be triggered to release that virus, and when it begins spreading like wildfire, no one can figure out why. The technology exists for this. The question is, are they that crazy? Well, I do believe they are that crazy. And as of right now, they are absolutely that desperate. So think about this. We are coming up to the midterm elections, probably one of the most important midterm elections of our lifetime. They have to find a way to take that election and ensure that the Democrats get at least the House, one House out of this. Now, that's not a very easy task. I mean, people would say that Donald Trump has lost a lot of support. Yeah, but trust me, the Republicans are going to have a massive red wave coming in November. If you just look at what is happening all throughout this country, you have Democrat incumbent candidates that are resigning from their position because they don't have the funds to go out there and run their campaigns. You have other Democrats that are losing the position and being forced into resigning simply because their past is catching up with them. This is a very, very bad time for power politics in the United States of America if you're a liberal or a Democrat, or if you're a big fan of the one world government, new world order. So in understanding that, they need a massive global emergency. It's the same playbook, just played a different way. And I think that they could take this to the next level if they potentially wanted to. I don't know if that's going to happen. I don't know if this is just going to be a few days and it's out of the news cycle and it's over and done with. But if this does escalate into something way more, we have to start asking these questions. One of the things that I wonder about this is that if you were going to do if you were a globalist organization that was hell-bent on taking down the United States of America, and you wanted to do a global pandemic, the one thing I will say is the last virus you're going to use is the hantavirus. It doesn't make sense that you'd use the hantavirus because the hantavirus isn't necessarily contagious through the air. It's only contagious through bodily contact. So kind of interesting there. You would probably use another virus that is way more contagious and even more deadlier. But interesting enough, this is a potential of what's happening. These are the types of conversations that we have to have in our world these days, because you never know what the hell is going to happen or what plays are going to be put out there by the globalists and by the deep state. So is it plausible? It's plausible. If so, where did they get it from? 323 vials containing deadly viruses, including hantavirus, reported missing from Australia in a lab in 2024 after a major biosecurity breach. I just, the coincidence of all of these things. So we have a potential pandemic coming up in play. Hopefully it doesn't get to that level. We have indictments, declassification. We have grand juries investigating. We have the midterm elections coming up. There's a lot of things happening. Today, Donald Trump had a call with the president of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen. He said they discussed many topics, including that we are completely united and Iran can never have a nuclear weapon. We agreed that the regime that kills its own people cannot control a bomb that can kill millions. I've been waiting patiently for the EU to fulfill their side of the historic trade deal agreed in Turnberry, Scotland, the largest trade deal ever. A promise was made that the EU would deliver their side of the deal and, as per the agreement, cut their tariffs to zero. I agreed to give her until the country's 250th birthday, or unfortunately, their tariffs would immediately jump to much higher levels. You gotta love how this man operates. So the EU agreed to terms and they never followed through. He's going to give them to July 4th. Do you think that that's an indication of something? The day in 1776 when the United States declared independence from Great Britain, and he's now going back there to Great Britain's, the old British Empire's, one of their largest global infrastructure organizations, the EU, and telling them that you have till July 4th to comply with this or shit's going to hit the proverbial fan. You gotta love how this man does it. Going in here, I want to check a few things real quick. Don't worry, there's more news. All right. Detroit 2020 election document investigation reveals a whopping 12.4% of absentee ballots are missing the official envelope required by law from 51 taxpayer-subsidized housing addresses. I mean, think about this. This is the most absurd shit you've ever heard in your life. They utilize the poor, the illegal immigrants, they utilize the disenfranchised to exploit them for votes. And now you're finding out in Detroit 2020 elections. You remember, if you remember Detroit, that's where the white van pulled up and was offloading ballots. Yeah, 12.4% of the absentee ballots are missing the official envelope that were required by law. So I'm wondering if you're going to see Michigan as one of the next states that has subpoenas issued to it by the DOJ. Hopefully, we can only be so lucky. Minnesota Democrats, this is my state, unanimously voted not to require the removal of dead people from Minnesota's voters' roll. Minnesota is an occupied state. I'm beginning to believe that Minnesota is an occupied state. Rep. Comer on Ilham Omar, 11, as we call her.
You're also raising questions over possible felonies that could have been committed by Minnesota Democrat Ilhan Omar. After discrepancies in her financial disclosures, the Wall Street Journal reported that she and her husband's assets were listed between $6 million and $30 million. But then Omar's office later said that the outlet, the filing contained a discrepancy, and an amended version of the of her assets were put out. And then she said that her assets are actually between $18,000 and $95,000. Right, Mr. Chairman, this is a huge gap. Are her assets $95,000 or $30 million?
I don't know, but there's one particular asset that we believe she listed. That they were listed in two different companies that she and her husband owned, and they went from, worthless to worth between $6 and $30 million, back down to worthless. Now there was a 4-month period when this became a story that her asset had ballooned to $30 million, and it happened around the time the Somali fraud popped up on everybody's radar screen. She never answered questions to reporters. She could have said then, oh my, I don't have a $30 million net worth. It must have been a mistake in my financial disclosure form. She never said anything. And then when it comes time for all of us to disclose our financial disclosure forms, she amends it and says, oh, I don't have any net worth. But we know there was a winery in question here that has been involved in some type of fraud accusations and lawsuits that her husband was a part of. We know that if you lie on your financial disclosure form, that's a felony. It says it at the bottom. And it's very hard, Maria, to make a mistake on your financial disclosure form, especially if you're like Ilhan Omar and you don't have very many assets. They basically had two assets that were two mysterious companies that went from worthless to $30 million back down to worthless. That doesn't make sense. Anyone who's financially literate, which would be everyone who's watching your show right now, knows that doesn't pass the smell test. And yet she's never sat down with a reporter and explained what the discrepancy was and how it happened and what type of lawsuits are involved with her husband's companies. Just doesn't make sense, and that's why we're pushing the ethics committee to do a full investigation of this, and it shouldn't take long for the ethics committee to do it.
Now let's discuss this a little bit. She's an 11-ocrat. Instead of saying Democrats, we should just say 11-ocrats. But Ilham Omar. So what would prompt her to do that? Why would she lie on her financial disclosure and then amend it later and her net worth go from 30 million to like 30,000? The business didn't even exist. It was selling no products at all, even though it existed. It was a fictitious business. Fake. Well, let me ask you this. If you're a Democrat that's part of the deep state, and you have NGOs that want to ensure you get paid for your loyalty, how do you pay them? Well, you go out there, you create a shell company, a fictitious company, and you run money through it, and you pay yourself out of that. And I'm sure that she was paid millions of dollars out of this one company. But like we said, fake companies, you have fake people, citizens in name only, employees in name only, right? Now you got fake companies in name only. You got fake mortgages, primary mortgages in name only. The Democrats have been running one big money laundering scheme after another for well over 30 years. You wonder why we're $34 trillion in debt and we can't pay that off. It's not because of the erratic spending of government. It's because of the corruption that operates within government that produces the erratic spending that then be laundered away from the use of that money was actually intended for towards the pockets of various different members of Congress and their friends. And I will say it here. There better be accountability for this shit. If there is zero accountability at the end of Donald Trump's term for all of this shit, it's civil war time. And yes, I am very serious about that. It is civil war time because there's no way this country is going to survive after Trump if this shit doesn't get fixed. Today, oh my God, interesting stuff happening out in the world. Man. 3 world-class American U.S. destroyers transited very successfully out of the Strait of Hormuz under fire. There was no damage done to the 3 destroyers, but great damage done to the Iranian attackers. They were completely destroyed along with numerous small boats, which are being used to take the place of their fully decapitated Navy. These boats went to the bottom of the sea quickly and efficiently. They met Davy Jones' Laka. Missiles were shot at our destroyers and were easily knocked down. Likewise, drones came and were incinerated while in the air. They dropped ever so beautifully down to the ocean, very much like a butterfly dropping to its grave. A normal country would have allowed these destroyers to pass, but Iran is not a normal country. They are led by lunatics, and if they had the chance to use a nuclear weapon, they would do it without question, but they'll never have that opportunity. And just like we knocked them out again today, we'll knock them out a lot harder and a lot more violently in the future if they don't get their deal signed fast. Our 3 destroyers with their wonderful crews will now rejoin the naval blockade, which is truly a wall of steel. President Donald J. Trump. And right after this, the United States military carried out strikes in Iran's Bandar Abbas and Qom ports. So they started some strikes again. I think that this was more of a warning back at Iran. So far, Iran has not been responding back to any of this. The U.S. military struck various different naval assets. I believe it was a shipyard and various different small boat storage facilities for Iran, more of a warning to Iran. But as we were talking about Iran yesterday, Iran is a multifactional government. You have the civilian components taking back over a lot of the IRGC, but you have a lot of IRGC hardliners that are ordering these types of things. President Pezeshkian has definitely been wanting to try to get a deal done, and it's becoming very, very difficult because of the various IRGC hardliners who are religiously and theocratically motivated to bring a holy war. So it's going to be very interesting to see how this plays out. Do I think Iran is going to retaliate against the United States for hitting these ports and bringing ships through? I do. I really do. I think that you're going to see Iran probably launch some missiles into Bahrain, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and UAE to begin this process all over again. But I think that it's not going to be as severe as last time. But one thing you're going to see is raising global energy prices. And Donald Trump today, and you got to remember, and I'll explain this here in a second. Donald Trump today, listen to what he says.
Well, no, gas prices have come down today. Have you looked? They've come down very substantially today. The gas prices, you know what's happened today? Gas prices are way down and the stock market is way up today.
So what he's saying is gas prices have came way down. And I said gas prices are anything but way down. So what he's actually talking about is Brent crude or crude oil prices are actually down today in the market. But see, when you go fill up your gas tank, that's not reflected by current day prices. That's gas from 2 weeks ago when they skyrocketed up. So that's why it's so damn high. But this shit does need to end because I cannot pay $100 for a tank of gas anymore. It's getting beyond ridiculous. What do we got? Look, you got to love this. We talked about Ukraine yesterday and how we're coming up on the Victory Day celebrations in Russia, and Putin warned Zelensky not to disrupt the Victory Day celebrations in Russia. So what happened? Ukraine just launched a massive drone attack on Russia 50 minutes before Putin's Victory Day ceasefire was supposed to start. I think that if they go through Victory Day without a single drone strike or anything of that nature, immediately after, Putin is going to follow through and begin freaking bombing the shit out of Kyiv. That is my take on this. I think he also needs to go out there and take Odessa. I do definitely think that's coming. And where are we at here? All right. Wow, man. There's news, but it wasn't a lot of news. Okay, we'll get through this. Tim Burchett, Congressman Tim Burchett, was on Joe Rogan. Let's listen to this comment here.
Do you know what is going to be released? So supposedly this is the week of some kind of disclosure. Can you give us any insight as to what's going on?
Oddly enough, I got a call that tomorrow at 3 o'clock, I'm going to be briefed over the phone by, I think one of Hegseth's top dogs is going to go over some stuff with me that they've got, and I have no earthly idea. I don't want everybody to get their hopes up. I don't have a lot of faith in our government. President Trump's always been great to me. He's never lied to me, but I don't know that he knows the right questions to ask and the right people to talk to, because, I mean, this thing's been covered up at least since 1947, and I just don't think they're going to – they don't give up that easy. The war pimps at the Pentagon and everybody else.
He's absolutely right. You know, a few months ago, I talked about the various different phases that will roll out. And I want to pull up a private conversation. I'm not going to show it to you on the screen, but I'm pulling it up because I want to read to you something that was in that private conversation that pertains to what is about to happen. And I'm looking for it right now. Not going to tell you who the conversation was with, but I've laid this out multiple different times before of what was about to happen. And I want to do it specifically to the words that I said to this person. Man, I blow my screens up to like 250x, so it just sucks. It sucks because it becomes really, really difficult to find anything when everything on the screen is that large. And let me go down here. Okay. So this is what I believe we're going to see over the course of the next few months when it comes to UFO disclosure. So this is, by the way, this conversation was back in March. I said about 2 weeks ago, from what I heard, there was a high-level classified briefing with select cabinet members, senior generals, and the president. The discussion reportedly covered several key points. This was in March and April timeframe. This was interesting because after I wrote this private message to somebody, the next day is when Burchett came out and said that he was briefed 2 weeks ago. And so it correlates directly to that, which kind of confirms the information that I was getting. But this is what was in this discussion when the president was briefed and a few of these other people were briefed. Number one is we are not alone in the universe. Number two, there's an active presence on this planet that is significantly more technologically advanced than we are. Number three, if that presence chose to act aggressively, we currently have no viable defense. Our most advanced systems could be obsolete by comparison. Number four, contact or relations were allegedly established as far back as the 1950s, yet today there's no clear line of authority overseeing those arrangements. Number five, much of the research and development tied to the issue exists outside traditional government oversight, buried inside special access programs and unacknowledged special access programs, primarily under the Department of Energy linked compartments and certain defense contractors. These programs are shielded under the National Security Act, EO 13526, and the Atomic Energy Act and Title 18 authorities. Now, this is the part that matters and likely one of the real drivers behind the disclosure momentum that we're seeing right now. It's about It's about what we have built inside the USAP, Unacknowledged Special Access Programs, over the last 60 years. That's what all of this is about. There's reportedly a coordinated effort within the Trump administration to regain constitutional and executive control over the projects that currently operate within opaque compartments, often embedded in contractor ecosystems beyond standard oversight. The president, through the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Dan Kane, has allegedly been briefed at the highest levels. They are said to know the technological advancements developed over the decades, and they want those capabilities repatriated under direct executive authority. They also reportedly know where some of these technologies originate, not just organizationally, but geographically. So this is where it gets interesting. I don't know if I've ever said this on a show before. There's a few different things that I do know, some things you really don't talk about. I think that we might actually hear about this program in phase 2 when it does come out. Decades ago, there was a classified effort, sometimes referred to as Project Origin, aimed at identifying the terrestrial origin point of these craft. The program allegedly identified 15 global hotspots where activity appeared to originate. Patterns reportedly emerged: deep ocean regions, volcanic corridors, mountainous terrains, areas with significant ancient structures or indigenous historical significance. Further analysis suggested common denominators: underwater magma channels, high geothermal flux, ionized plasma conditions, strong electromagnetic disturbances, gravity anomalies, and possible mantle access corridors. The hypothesis was that these locations provide energetic or geophysical conditions conducive to propulsion, staging, or transit. The overall assessment from certain compartments, these entities appeared observational in nature and not overtly hostile. Internally, what were described as technological capability assessments, a DoD term, allegedly occur periodically. In practical terms, every few years there are renewed encounters or observable events, almost as if something is evaluating where humanity stands technologically. Then activity subsides. Now, regarding disclosure, what I heard suggests a multi-phase strategy. Phase 1, controlled data release. This is potentially what we're hearing is going to happen tomorrow. Tomorrow, aliens.gov, I heard, is going to go online and documents are going to flood in. Phase 1, initial declassification will focus on technical material, radar tracks, flight telemetry, sensor fusion data, cockpit recordings, and eyewitness documentation, essentially modernized Blue Book level material. Why? The emphasis will not be these are aliens. The emphasis will be these are demonstratively anomalous phenomena exhibiting non-conventional performance characteristics. The phase is aimed primarily at normalizing the science and engaging the research community. Phase 2, whistleblower immunity framework. New legislation will provide broad immunity protections for current and former personnel involved in classified programs related to advanced aerospace technologies and associated operations. This would allow testimony without prosecution under existing national security statutes. We can see that probably 4 or 5 months down the road. Phase 3, executive consolidation. This will be within the next year, I believe. A classified executive order would reportedly move to consolidate advanced technologies currently compartmentalized across contractors and agencies, repatriating oversight under centralized DoD and DOE authorities. The real story, if this framework is accurate, is not extraterrestrials, it's governance. Who controls advanced propulsion, energy, material science, and next-generation weapon systems developed under decades of compartmentalization? Disclosure in this view isn't about a revelation. It's about control, jurisdiction, and technological consolidation. And that's a very different conversation for all of us. And I've talked at length that this is really what it's about. It's not necessarily about the government. It doesn't want to tell you about UFOs or alien. It's the methods and the processes that utilize detecting these phenomena is one of the main reasons why they don't put it out there. Here's the thing, is if you have $1 billion sensor system that's attached to one of your planes, and that sensor system is detecting these anomalous phenomena, you cannot release that information because it's going to tell the enemy what sensor system you're using in the various different, variations of that sensor system and how they're adjusted. That's not something that you want out there. On the other side of it as well, is I don't think it's so much about the extraterrestrial nature. It's about the technological nature, about the reverse engineering. A lot of people claim that Peter Thiel is trying to basically break in and get these files out so that he can get the government contracts. I find that is highly plausible. That Peter Thiel's influence in the Trump administration is 100% about getting this technology released back under executive authority and then getting the DoD contract shared with Elon Musk to begin production of these types of technologies for Department of Defense utilization. Now, Jeremy Corbell came out and said his sources in the White House, as well as congressional members, tell George Knapp that presidential UFO file release will begin tomorrow. Could this be coordinated with the President Trump coming out and making an address to the nation and saying something like, hey, we are not alone in the universe? I hope so, because as long as we just had that one part, I'd feel much better about it all. Then we can stop all the discussions about people saying it's impossible, it's not real, or it's demons. What else do we have? Tim Burchett gets a phone call briefing from Pete Hegseth's staff tomorrow. We just looked at that one. So, Tim Burchett, some new information I hadn't heard yet. This is pretty interesting. Listen to this one.
Those 5 gentlemen that came to my house, 4 or 5, that came to my house that time, they were talking about a moon that was around Saturn or Jupiter that they'd done some testing with that they think would be capable of something, and the moon was larger than our Earth, of course. But
there's a moon that's larger than our Earth?
Yeah, around Jupiter or Saturn.
That doesn't make any sense. I don't think that's correct.
Well, maybe I'm wrong. Check it out.
Yeah, no. There's no moons that are larger than a planet.
No, it's not.
I don't think so. Our planet.
Well,
I don't believe that's true.
Circles around it. I don't know. Anyway, I'm wrong.
Is that accurate?
What he's talking about is Nibiru. I guarantee you.
Do I not know about this?
Conspiracy theory is.
Yeah, but there's not. I don't believe there's a moon out there that's larger than our planet.
These guys seem to think that something could travel from there, and it was the quantum physics. After talking to that admiral, it makes me wonder if there is something in these deep ocean areas. That the old cliche, we know more about the surface of the moon than we do the surface of the ocean.
So, one thing that you have to understand, and what he was talking about right there, by the way, is Tim Burchett is talking about these 5 military guys. I think they were all general officers that came to his house and talked to him and briefed him on these types of things. One of the things that he was talking about there was something that is orbiting Jupiter or Saturn that is bigger than the Earth, probably bigger than I think what they meant to say is bigger than the Earth's moon, that can traverse back and forth. Now, is that possible without detection? No, it's not. If something was as big as our moon or big as our Earth that was orbiting Jupiter or Saturn, it would have a gravitational tug on it, and we'd actually see that move. Now, is he talking about potential NASA documentation that observed a UFO bigger than our planet by the surface of the sun, absorbing the sun's energy and then disappearing? I remember that one. That would be cool to learn about. But one thing that I think it's important to note is that, like Matt Gaetz, Congressman Burchett, and many of these others, you have a lot of people that are coming forth claiming to be a part of these programs and going under oath and testifying. And some of them are probably very much full of shit. Just saying that the stories are cockamamie. And a lot on the other side is that you have to bring in the context that the DoD itself wants to draw disinformation and misinformation into this. And they could be bringing a lot of these people forth to bring these testimonies out that completely are falsified. That way they can discredit a lot of these claims in the back end. So interesting time to be alive. I hope that tomorrow these files do drop, because we are absolutely going to talk about it, have a show on it. Yes, there is going to be a daily dose tomorrow. And let me see here. We got Overwatch and The Guardian coming up next, the OG show. Don't forget to go visit our sponsor, life.redpills.tv. I didn't play any ads tonight from Rumble because we're ad-free when we're sponsored by a great sponsor. That is life.redpills.tv. That's Lifewave. Go get your patches today. And if you want to learn how to use them, we'll have a session here in about a week from Saturday will be another session that you guys can learn more about those. But life.redpills.tv. I'm going to go ahead and go get ready for the OG show. I got to give Alpha a call. Definitely no guest tonight, but we'll see what we can talk about. Slow news day, but some important news right there. But guys, I love you. You guys are amazing. Last night's Q&A was awesome, by the way. I hope you guys can join in next month or next week. That's redpills.tv premium. You can go find out all the information on how to become a premium member and get in on those Q&As. And potentially another Q&A coming up maybe this week or next week with Alpha Warrior. I'll keep you guys updated on that. I know we're going to probably talk about it here in a few minutes when I give him a call, unless he's live on his channel. But that's all I have for you tonight. Much love, respect. God bless. Take care. Have a great night. And I'll see you guys next time. Good night.
There was a time when our children stood tall, hand on their hearts, one voice for all. There was a time when honor had weight, when the flag was a symbol, not a debate. There was a time when our history was known, with pride in the rules that made us our own. There was a time, respect for the brave, for those who bled, for the lives they gave. Now the homeland burns in silent war. Truth is twisted, we can't ignore. Through the smoke, a voice still calls. We the people will not fall. There was a time, but the time isn't near. The great awakening is here. Dark to light, veil undone. Patriots rise, we are one. Land of the free, home of the brave. No more silence, no more slaves. Answer the call, take back the fight. Children of freedom, stand for the light. There was a time when truth was clear, when the media served, not ruled by fear. There was a time when leaders stood fast, guarding the people, defending the past. Now corruption wears a crown, lies are fed to tear us down. But Q said watch, and Q said see. The silent war will set us free. From the front lines, soldiers stare, wondering if we're still there. Their blood, their hope, their sacrifice will not be sold for a life's price. There was a time, but the time isn't near. The great awakening is here. Dark to light, the veil undone. Patriots rise, we are one. Land of the free, home of the brave. No more silence, no more slaves. Answer the call, take back the fight. Children of freedom, stand for the light.
Freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. It must be fought for, protected, and handed on. Or we will spend our sunset years telling our children what it was once like in the United States where men were free.
There was a time, the time is near. The great awakening is here. Dark to light, veil undone. Patriots rise,
I don't have to tell you things are bad. Everybody knows things are bad. The air is unfit to breathe, and our food is unfit to eat. I don't know what to do about the depression and the inflation. I want you to get mad.
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass. And I'm all out of bubblegum.
People should not be afraid of their governments. Governments should be afraid of their people.
The more you fuck around, the more you're going to find out.
These people are still a part of that system, and that makes them our enemy.
We accept the reality of the world with which we're presented. It's as simple as that.
I want you to get up right now and go to the window, open it, and stick your head out and yell, I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore!